In the heart of Central Africa, where forests stretch into the horizon and the savanna glows beneath endless sky, lived the Azande, a people with a rich history of artistry, kingship, and warrior tradition. Within this society existed a form of companionship rarely acknowledged in modern retellings, a partnership between men that combined mentorship, loyalty, affection, and sometimes romance. A relationship that was not hidden, not condemned, and not considered unusual. Today, we explore the story of the Azande warrior companions, a chapter of African history where male intimacy lived openly and without shame. Young Azande men entered warriorhood in their teenage years. When they did, they left their family homes and joined the warrior lodges led by accomplished adult fighters. These lodges became their new communities, places where skills were perfected, discipline was taught, and bonds were formed. But the warrior system relied on more than training alone. Each young man needed guidance, not just in combat, but in emotional maturity, responsibility, and social belonging. And so, every warrior chose a younger companion, a partner who would live by his side, share daily responsibilities, and become an intimate part of his life. This was not seen as unusual. It was the norm, an accepted, expected structure within the Azande age grade system. The relationship between warrior and companion was both practical and deeply emotional. They shared living quarters, meals, and daily chores. They trained together, hunted together, and supported each other in moments of danger. One offered mentorship, the other offered loyalty and dedication. The younger partner, often described in early writings with terms that reflected foreign observers' interpretations, was in truth a respected and valued companion. He was not subordinate in a degrading way. Rather, he was learning, growing, and preparing for adulthood under the guidance of someone who cared for him. These partnerships were built on mutual trust. They often grew into bonds so deep that foreigners struggled to categorize them. But the Azande themselves never needed categories. They simply accepted the companionship as a natural expression of human connection. One of the most powerful truths about Azande culture is its understanding that masculinity and tenderness were not opposites. Men were allowed to show affection. They held hands, they embraced openly, they slept beside one another in their huts. They spoke to each other with fondness and warmth. Intimacy between men was not a threat to the social order. It was an expression of human closeness. Historical accounts describe these relationships as romantic in many cases. But the Azande did not draw rigid boundaries between emotional, physical, and companionate love. What mattered was the bond, its depth, its loyalty, and its contribution to the fabric of warrior life. This fluidity of affection was not only accepted, it was respected. The warrior with a devoted companion was seen as emotionally supported, more balanced, and better able to serve. The Azande warrior companions exchanged gifts that symbolized their connection: a carved stool, a decorated bowl, a beaded ornament, a belt or wristband crafted from leather, a meal prepared with care. These items served as both practical tools and symbols of affection. Songs were also exchanged, short melodic phrases or poetic lines praising a companion's bravery, beauty, or spirit. These songs were not private or secret. They were part of the cultural expression of admiration. The giving of gifts and praise created a ritual language of love and loyalty. Through these acts, companions affirmed their connection and strengthened their emotional bond. The warrior-companion relationship typically lasted several years, beginning when the younger man entered the lodge and ending when he reached full maturity. As he grew older, he gained independence, eventually becoming a warrior himself. Often, at this stage, he chose a companion of his own, continuing the tradition. This transition did not sever the original bond. The older warrior and his fallen companion often remained emotionally connected for life. Some visited each other regularly. Some shared stories and memories during festivals. Others stayed close, in a way that resembled lifelong friendships, or former romantic partners who maintained mutual respect. The Azande viewed relationships as fluid, evolving naturally as men passed through different stages of life. Marriage did not end the emotional bond between warrior companions. A man could marry a woman and still maintain a meaningful connection with his former partner. The community did not frame these bonds as contradictory or inappropriate. Warrior companionships were seen as part of youth and adulthood. Marriage was a different but equally important part of life. To the Azande, love and partnership did not compete, they coexisted, each offering its own purpose and stability. Family life, warrior duties, and emotional companionship formed a balanced social structure. This balance allowed the community to thrive without rigid boundaries dictating the correct way to love. The Azande worldview teaches us something profound. Human relationships are not always linear. They are not confined to single definitions. They do not exist to fit into labels. The Azande allowed affection to be layered. They allowed bonds between men to be caring, supportive, intimate, and respected. They saw no contradiction between masculinity and softness, between warriorhood and affection, between mentorship and love. This cultural perspective is essential for understanding African history in its fullness, without imposing modern categories or assumptions onto the past. The warrior companion tradition of the Azande reveals a world where men loved one another with honesty, depth, and dignity. A world where tenderness was not hidden, where emotional connection strengthened warriorhood rather than weakened it, where same-sex partnership existed without stigma. These relationships were woven into everyday life, expressed through shared labor, affectionate gestures, symbolic gifts, and lifelong loyalty. Their story invites us to remember that African history contained many forms of intimacy, forms that were natural, meaningful, and deeply human. Love did not arrive recently, it was always present, in the shadows of warrior lodges, in the warmth of shared meals, in the quiet devotion of men who chose each other. And their story, like so many others, deserves to be told.